What? Live. We're live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone doing?
I know
Awesome.
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Chad?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Um, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good. Yeah, I think I've been moving around a lot, sleeping really well, eating really well, and just in general, yeah, happy. So it's good. Yeah.
Good.
What's been going on in your world?
Well, my mom was here, so
Oh,
that was nice to have my mom here from Minnesota. So we spent a few days going on a hike, went to the beach a little bit. So it was a nice little break to get out and be more active. So
nice.
yeah,
You guys have tons of places to go hiking there, huh? With the mountains and
it's amazing. I mean, you can literally walk to like or go to Topanga. You can go to all these different like trails around us, or you could drive to Mount Baldy or Big Bear, where you can do these huge mountain hikes, which is pretty cool.
yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that I love most is hiking next to mountains, like really high terrain mountains where you can look over the, I'm hiking next to oceans, I mean, where you can look over the ocean and like get the perspective of the earth and the curvature. Like I love doing that in Costa Rica. Every time I go to California, I try to do something like that.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, good for you. Good for
yeah.
you.
Thank
Awesome. Well, speaking of hiking and moving, today should be fun. So we're going to be talking about movement and exercise and things like posture, which, as a physical therapist, I'm sort of becoming fanatical about it. I have been for a long time, but it's so important. In the same way that, we talk about eating
right.
and certain foods that were designed for it, and how our modern culture, we've, moved away from the foods that our ancestors ate for, thousands and thousands of years. And now we have, toxic food, sugar,
Right.
conventional grains and dairy. In the same way, we've also forgotten how to move and how we're supposed to move and our natural ways of movement. And a lot of it is because of our environment. So I've said it a few times on here, but I talked about the collapsing dorsal fin of
Mhm.
orcas, right? Shamus that are in SeaWorld, and how that
Mm.
collapsed dorsal fin is not something that we see with orcas when they're in nature, and how the environment of that tank, swimming in a counterclockwise direction, not going into deep waters, eating poorly nutritious food is what is causal to that collapsed dorsal fin. And in the same way, we're living in that human tank, eating, conventional foods, but we're also, sitting in chairs the whole time and slumping. And that's resulting in
Mm.
slouch postures, these rounded backs, these forward heads, these shoulders that kind of round in. And when that happens, the pelvis gets in a funky position. And, we're wearing cushioned shoes all the time with high heels. So we're not expressing range of motion in there. So things get tight. And often when we experience pain, the solution that we think of is not to address any of these musculoskeletal issues. It's often to numb it, so we don't feel the pain. And then what happens is the same thing. If like your tires were not aligned and you kept driving, you would eventually blow something out. So we tear labrums, we hips and bulging disc and things like that. But the root issue is a lot of these musculoskeletal imbalances that come from the environment and the positions that we're in. So super excited to talk about some of this stuff today. So, but general, what I want to say about movement is it's like a nutrient. Just like you need sunshine, just like you need water, like you need whole food. Movement is a nutrient in a very real way. It's part of your self-expression. Being able to get into a certain position and express yourself however you want, and you're very much claiming your worth to yourself and to others by how you position yourself, whether that's sitting, standing, running, walking, picking something up, doing it with an intention and doing it with good form and technique, paying attention to movement in terms of quality and quantity in the same way that we look at quality and quantity of food. So they're very similar. And we just want to bring more awareness to natural ways of movement, give you some ideas and tips, and hopefully everybody can walk away here with something actionable that they can start practicing and putting in and maybe upgrade their exercise prescription. So does that sound good to you, Rachel?
Sounds amazing. I'm excited for it. And I think going back a little bit to posture, like you said, it's important that posture is not only when you're sitting, it's how you're sleeping, it's how you're picking things up. Like you were addressing is there's so many things that people need to be aware of, that your body is not just one, just not when you're sitting. 'Cause a lot of people think that, oh, it's only when I'm at a desk, I got to be aware. But no,
Right.
you have to be aware of your body throughout the whole day, even at night when you're sleeping. Is how do you sleep? You sleep on your side with your knees up to your chest, or do you actually, put a pillow under your back and support yourself? And, so that's very, very important. So I'm excited for today to go more in depth and learn more.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's I call it inner body awareness. Being just as aware of the inner body as you are as to what's going on the outside. Because now we have so much stimulus out here, pings and notifications and information age, that we forget to check in with our body. Even something as simple as having a conversation with somebody, just paying attention to, well, where are my feet right now? Am I standing tall? Am I slouching? Am I leaning on one side? Just checking in. That little thing can have a huge impact on your health over time. So huge. So we live in what I like to call a flexion-based society, right? So like I mentioned, we're always slumping, sitting in chairs. And this happens at a very, very early age, right? Like we play around a lot when we're 5 years old, and then they'd send us to kindergarten school and they tell us to sit down and sit still. And that's what we do. And then we stay there, for 6 to 7 hours, and we come home and we typically sit down. This is all throughout school, middle school, high school, college, and then we get jobs and we sit behind a desk and we drive to work and we drive home sitting in chairs. And then we come home and we sit on the couch, and now we're texting on our phones looking forward. So what happens is our body is adapting to this flexion-based posture, right? Adaptation is always occurring in our body, right? Depending on the type of stress that we're giving it, right? So if we went to outer space where there's no gravity, our bones would adapt. They would get weak and fragile and be more likely to break. And if we want to get stronger, we start lifting weights and our muscles get bigger and our bones will get more dense. If it's all based on the stress that we're giving it. And when we're sitting all the time, certain muscles are getting tight and shortened, and certain muscles are getting elongated and weakened. Joint capsules are closing off. We're losing range of motion in our body, and it all affects everything. So it's important to understand that. So here's some stats on sitting I want to talk about real quick. So 90% of all our activities are mostly done in a sitting down position, right? When you think about that, that's a lot. And when we're sitting for that long and that much, and this is kind of what most people are doing, we decrease a specific enzyme called lipoprotein lipase. What this enzyme does is it clears the bloodstream of fat, basically, right? So when we're not doing that, we're decreasing that enzyme, and that makes it more likely for fat particles and lots of cholesterol to build up in our arteries and our blood vessels, and then that leads to a whole host of problems with our health. Like we could have, like I mentioned, cholesterol problems, but this also leads to obesity, heart disease, cancer. Those things all increase when we go up. And chronic sitters are 40% more likely to die within 15 years than people who sit for less than 3 hours a day. So if you hear nothing else today, just get up and move, right? Just get up and move often. Yeah. The other thing is interesting is that when we're in poor positions, like this slouch position, right? It changes our biochemistry and our emotional state. So there's a fascinating TED Talk by a Harvard researcher. Her name's Amy Cuddy, and she talks about how our biochemistry changes based on the position we're in. And when we're in these slouched positions, that we're adapting to and molding ourselves to, our cortisol goes up. We talk a lot about cortisol and how that's a stress hormone, and it's good for acute periods. But when our cortisol levels are chronically high, that sets us up for disease. But that slouch posture creates increased cortisol and decreased testosterone. And on the opposite end, when we're in a good, balanced power position, posture is what she calls it, the stress hormone goes down, testosterone goes up. And because of that, the immune system gets better, the gut function gets better. We put our nervous system in a more calm, relaxed state. So the position that you're in is incredibly important, not just from a physical standpoint, right? Because I can tell you firsthand, I've worked in every single setting now, but you can really see the impact of what happens of chronic sitting when you work with people in the elderly population. People that are 70, 80 years old who've been spending a lifetime over a desk. You can see that their head starts to come forward, their center of gravity starts to move forward, and then they start having falls, right? And they start losing range of motion. They can't quite look up. They can't quite reach the top cupboard, right? And it's because of that slouch position, right? So we want to be super cognizant of this and just know that this is part of the journey of health. Like we can't just eat good food. We can't just think about getting on a bike and riding for miles and miles on end, we have to think about our posture and our body position.
Right. It's
Makes
interesting.
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. When my mom was here, we were actually, when we were out walking the neighborhood and walking my dog, you were seeing a bunch of people that were all walking like this. And so you were realizing as they're getting older, they're doing that. And my mom's like, I wonder if they're doing that because they're watching the floor to make sure they don't fall. So as people keep doing that over the years, you're just staying like that. So they're walking literally hunched like this. So going back to the thing is when you walk, you should always just look in front of you. And that's something that I do now because I used to do that. I would always walk like this. And I too would get tight necks and everything from sitting. So I have to be aware and be mindful about keeping my shoulders back, my head back, because I used to be one of those people that always look down. And it does start to play effect on the rounding of your head coming forward, your shoulders. So yeah, it does totally make sense to be aware, look forward, not down, all those things to just keep paying attention to.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about the quality of walking, but you hit on something really important there is like that forward head, right? And the knots in the back, right? A lot of people think these knots in the back are just like genetic or something, but they're not really thinking about why they have the knots in the back, right? So think of if you were holding a bowling ball in your wrist, right? And you had it nice and balanced right here. It wouldn't be too much stress on these muscles right here. But let's say you're holding that same bowling ball and you cock your hand forward like this. It would start making these muscles right here work really hard. And after a while, they'd start to tear, like little micro tears in these muscles and these tendons and ligaments. And then you'd no longer be able to hold it up anymore, right? But it would feel like you just got to massage it real hard, right? It'd be so sore. And like the thing is, we can massage that all we want. We can go massage therapist. Oh, yes. Oh, it feels so good. Thank you so much. Give me a hot pack. Oh, yeah. It doesn't do anything unless you change that position, right? It's the root issue, right? So we have to put ourselves in a better position. The reason why we have those knots in our back is because of poor sustained positions, right? Or because we're holding our shoulders up too high and we're stressed. We don't know how to let go of it, right? So it's just so important. I say this because it's like the most overlooked thing because we're conditioned on TV, to see, oh, you've got that red spot right here. Oh, I've got that red spot. Well, here's an NSAID to take it. And meanwhile, it doesn't get to the root of the problem. And the NSAID, destroys your gut lining and you get sicker and sicker. And it's like, whoa. These are problems of position. These are problems of your posture and how you're moving, so we have to think about that. So I hope that nailed down the problem enough, right?
Honestly, red lights are flashing, super important.
Okay, good. So let's start with talking about position and looking at the stagnant positions of, first of all, sitting and standing, right? So if we're going to do nothing else, let's just try to choose a better position while we're sitting. And this could be while we're at work, while we're watching TV, while we're in our car, while we're sitting on a park bench. You want to sit like a champion, sit like a hero, okay? So the first rule of sitting is always sit on your sit bones, right? So there's two bony prominences right under your hips right there. You want to always make sure that you're sitting as far back as you can in your chair, if your chair has a backrest, and sit on those sit bones, right? This puts your pelvis in a better position, which puts your low back in a better position, which puts the neck in a better position. Where most people go wrong is they sort of fall into the seat and they sit on the tailbone, right? And then we get that rounded spine and the neck is already forward. So rule number one, sit on the sit bones, okay? If you can, you want to have your knees slightly lower than your hips as well. This is difficult in a car. That's why in a car it's really important to always get your hips back close to the backrest as far as you can, behind you as close as you can. But if you're at a desk especially, try to make sure that your seat is situated in such a way that your hips are a little bit higher than your knees. It makes it much better, much easier for you to get your low back in a better position, right? If you're on a park bench where there is no backrest, same thing, sit on the sit bones and just try to sit upright. Or you can flex at the hip and put your hands on your knees. Right? Real simple. But the main thing we're doing here is we're putting the spine in a neutral position and not bending it for long periods of time. That's where we get in trouble, right? Now, when we're standing, always try to make sure that when you're standing, your feet are pointed forward, right? This is huge. So when we toe out a little bit, we start to externally rotate our hips. It's going to make our pelvis shift forward and our low back is going to feel a lot of pressure, right? And the other thing people do when they're standing is they favor a side. Like they tend to lean on their left side all the time, or they lean on their right side all the time. And this is classic reason 101 why people have like back pain, is because let's say someone's leaning on their left side all the time, they're shifting their spine like this, right? And that there's a disc in the middle of your vertebrae, and it can push out, like you can think of like a marble in between two saucers. And if you're always going like this, the marble's going to shoot in the opposite direction, and it causes us to have back pain. That disc, or that it can press on a nerve and refer pain down the other side. So just be mindful of when you're standing, feet forward, right? And have balance in your feet. Now with your feet, what I want you to think about doing if you're standing right now is screwing your feet in the ground. You're not actually moving your feet. They're pointed forward, but you're applying that torque, that pressure, like you're screwing your feet in the ground. And what that does is it activates your glutes, right? So when your glutes are activated, your pelvis will be in a more neutral position, and it'll decrease pressure on your low back. And then squeeze your glutes a little bit. So screw your feet in the ground, squeeze your glutes a little bit, and take your hands and put them right here, and then put them to your side. Yeah, and that puts your shoulder blades in a better position. Right. So instead of being right here. Yeah. So like just get in the habit of doing that, practicing standing in a better position, screwing your feet in the ground, squeezing your glutes, hands right here, and then relax. Right. And if we were going to think of a spectrum in terms of the contraction that your body would have, let's say like you're screwing your feet in the ground as hard as you can, you're squeezing your butt as hard as you can, and you're here, let's say you're at 100%, back off to like 20% contraction, and that's sort of where you should live, right? Like when you're checking out of the line or waiting on anything, or just standing in general for anything, have about a 20% contraction if you're not under any load of any kind. So better ways of standing, better ways of sitting. Make sense?
It does. And going back to sitting, no crossing the legs, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. Like, does that throw off your balance when you're leaning on one hip more than the other?
Yeah, well, it depends on how mobile you are. One thing because some people, when they cross their legs, they're so tight, they're compensating in their pelvis and their low back, right? You would be better off putting your ankle over your knee rather than your whole leg, like a typical, like a woman would cross her legs. That would be worse off than how like a guy would cross his legs. The other thing is if you are going to do that, that's okay, because you can actually get a stretch out of your legs. And I'm referring to like this type of crossing.
Oh yeah.
But you want to make sure you're balanced on both sides. Okay. So some people are super mobile on the right, but not on the left. And they should just get in the habit of practicing doing the left, because that all plays into how you move, right? If one hip capsule is too tight and the other one's too loose, then you're always going to be moving more on one side than the other, and it creates that imbalance, and you're going to have problems. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, those are the principles of sitting and standing, and then we want to talk about moving. So we want to move well, just like we want to choose quality foods, and we want to move often, right? So a good rule of thumb to avoid that stagnation problem that comes from chronic sitting is to get up and move every 5 minutes, or every 45 minutes for like a period of like 4 to 5 minutes, right? Get up every 45 minutes, move for like 4 to 5 minutes when you're working. This is called a non-exercise activity, right? This is not like the gym. This is just day-to-day, something that you do so that that lipoprotein lipase enzyme doesn't start kicking in, and you stop producing your ability to clear the bloodstream of fat. So get up and move every 30 to 45 minutes for a period of 5 minutes. A good rule of thumb is try to get in 10,000 steps a day. Do you still track yourself?
I do.
Where are you at?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm at 2.5.
2.5 miles?
No, 2.5K. So
nice.
Yeah. So the thing is, for me, I have to. It's like I challenge, and I love this because this forces me every single day, because I would definitely say that I got more than my money's worth on this. This is my competition right there. If I don't get my 10K, I go crazy. So what I'll do is I'll be like, okay. And it also sends me reminders too. So like every like hour, it sends you didn't get your 250 steps in. So it forces me to get up and be like, okay, I'm going to go on a walk, or I'm going to get outside and do this. So I absolutely love this. And it every day it's like, okay, I got my 10K. Can I get 11K today? Can I get 12K? So it forces me to keep like pushing myself to do more, but I have to get my 10K a day with my watch.
That's awesome. And that's a Fitbit?
That's a Fitbit.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I know a lot of people in the group have been using that, but yeah, bare minimum 10,000 a day, but that's cool. It has reminders.
Yeah.
I think that's super awesome. Another thing I suggest is like setting a timer, too. If people don't have a Fitbit or something like that, just set a timer every 30 to 45 minutes and then get up and move, and go, get outside, get some sun. That's one of the best things you can do. So, so many beneficial changes happen in the body there. When we are walking, just like when we're standing, try to get in the habit of walking with your feet forward.
Yeah.
So many of it are walking with our feet out, and that's causing a lot of problems in our foot, and we're not expressing range of motion in our ankle, and that puts more stress on our knees and our hips and our low back. So always try to walk with your feet forward every single time. Another thing that if people are up to it, what I highly encourage you to do is start trying to do barefoot walking. So I barefoot walk probably an hour every day around the lake here. We have a park with grass and sand, so I'd spend a lot of time walking there. But when you think about it, like our ancestors, they weren't walking in shoes, right? And when we're walking in these cushioned shoes, it prevents us from expressing range of motion in our feet and our ankles. They get really tight, they get really immobile. That sends a whole host of problems up and down the chain. But also, there's this interesting field of health called earthing. And it's looking at the relationship that we have to the earth, and that the earth has this electromagnetic field that's always sending energy and ions, important things for our health, up to our body when we're connecting to it. And also we're dumping a lot of negative energy that we don't need into the earth, right? But when we wear these cushioned shoes, we actually block that process from happening. So many of us are so disconnected from the earth. So one of the things I highly encourage people to do is start trying to barefoot walk. And it's just a great way, just walking in general is a great way to like get some sun, improve the health of your feet, and disconnect from social media and internet and all those things, and just go outside and look. You just look far away. It's good for your eyesight too. It's good to just listen and sound, like get present to everything that's happening all around you. And it's just so powerful for your health. So that's walking, and try to take shorter strides than you think are necessary. Many of us are walking with too long a stride. So shorten the stride, increase the cadence, stand tall, and walk with your feet forward, right? Those little things right there will have a huge impact. Now let's talk about mobility and stability. These are like the principles that I think can give you the shortcut on how to be your own physical therapist. So when I say mobility, I'm talking about the ability for a joint to get into a certain position, right? So this is my arm flexed, this is my arm extended. In between is the ability to do that is my mobility. It's a little bit different than flexibility. When people think flexibility, they think like, oh, I'm going to stretch this muscle and do this. Like, what's more important is your mobility, the ability to actually get into a position. And then we have stability, which is the ability to stay in that position, right? So when I go down into a squat and hold it, it's how stable am I? It depends on my brain, my motor pattern, my position, how well those muscles are actually holding me in that position, right? So there's mobility and stability. And as we look at the human body, there's different priorities on each segment of the body. And this is called a joint by joint approach, right? And this is give you the radical shortcut on how to correct your body in terms of what you do with exercise and stretching, things like that, right? So the priority in the ankles is mobility. Right, and most of us have really tight ankles because of those shoes, right? Because we're kind of casting our feet all the time. The priority in the knees, we're going up the joint here, up the body. The priority in the knees is stability, right? Many people are like, oh, I gotta get my knees stronger. No, you gotta get your knees more stable, and that depends on having mobile ankles. And the next one is mobility in the hips, right? The priority in the hips is mobility. Many of us have really, really tight hips because we're sitting all the time and we're not expressing range of motion, right? The priority in the low back, the lumbar spine, right? This is the curved part of the low back, is stability, right? So that's why core strengthening is so important. The priority in the mid back, that's the thoracic spine, that's the base of the neck, to the top of the low back is mobility. And that is a huge one. If there's like one area in the body where people need to work on getting more mobility, it's the thoracic spine. So that thoracic spine, when it's slumped over like that, everything else is in a bad position on the top part of the body. The shoulders are forward, the neck is forward. You're more likely to tear your labrum or rotator cuff, have neck pain, have those knots in your back, right? The priority in the shoulders is stability. The priority in the neck is mobility, right? So joint by joint approach, mobility, stability, mobility, stability, mobility, stability. You can get out of jail free right there. Yeah. Super easy. Yeah. And then we have movement patterns, right? So there's essentially a few key movement patterns that we all need to be working on when we exercise. And so those involve things like pushing, right? Pushing, and that can be a horizontal push or a vertical push. It can be a pull, so like a horizontal pull or a vertical pull. It can be a bend, like when we're bending over to pick up groceries or put things down into our dishwasher. It can be a squat, taking our hips down in between our knees and keeping our heels flat on the ground. It can be a carry, like when we're carrying the groceries. And then there's crawling, on all fours, which we'll talk about, is a very good way to get exercise in. And then a twist, like moving. So when we're running, we're twisting, right? Those are the 7 basic movement patterns. And what you want to think about when you're designing an exercise program, and I think the key with any exercise program is just for everybody, is to make sure it's fun and it's sustainable. It's something you can stick with and it doesn't get you hurt. Yes. Right? That's a key thing. Like, you should leave your exercise time feeling better than when you walked into the gym. You shouldn't be hurting more. You shouldn't be like tired and burnt out. You should look forward to going to do it. It should be entertaining for you. It shouldn't be something that you're dreading. Like, I just do not want to go. It's going to be horrible. And I'm seeing that a lot. Like, in our Western culture, we're very much like, go harder, do more, and I've definitely been there. I've done like all the CrossFits, but I'm seeing a lot of people coming off the couch trying to go do those things, and they're like, it's not meeting them where they're at, right? They're getting hurt very quickly, and it's too much too soon, and they're not taking care of these foundational things like I'm talking about with mobility and stability and addressing better positions, right? So exercise, just like food, is a very individualized thing. Nothing is ever a one-size-fits-all diet. Some people are like, well, how's CrossFit for me? It's like, well, how's CrossFit for you specifically? You have to look at who you are, what you're up to, what your goals are. Some of you may be perfect for yoga. Some of you may be perfect for Pilates. Some of you may be perfect for, Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Some of you just need to like go do some therapy, and just restore your body and get that moving, So it's important to think about those things. Is that all good? Makes sense?
It does. And I love that you said working out should be fun, because a lot of people use that as an excuse. I don't want to do it because they dread it. They don't want to get up because it's not fun. It's putting their body through something that's hurting them. Or it's like, working out could be simply just taking your dog on a walk. It could be going dancing. Even going out dancing is a great exercise. And just doing a little bit of movement just make it fun, because then you'll want to keep doing it. So it all makes sense, and I wish people would find something that they enjoy doing, and then they'll want to do it more and more every single day.
Yeah, it's so important. You have to enjoy it. It's going to be so much easier, just like your food. If you enjoy your food, you're going to keep making good food decisions. But if you enjoy your movement and what you're doing for exercise, it's a lot easier for you to show up, and just make sure that it's something that you're feeling better than when you left, and you're not getting hurt, and it's right for you. So I wanted to share some tests that people can do to kind of get an idea of where they're at in the mobility spectrum, right? And to see kind of where they need to work on. It's something that you can do right now and then come back later on and test yourself again. And so the first one is called a sit rising test. Now this is your ability to, from a cross-legged position, right, on the floor, standing up with as little extra help as possible and making contact with the ground. So like from a cross-legged position, can you stand up and you let's say you start at 10 points, you deduct a point for every time you use your hand or your knee or anything like another foot to make contact with the ground to help you get up, right? If your score is from, and we can put a link in here to show you, but if your score is 8 to 10, then you're good. you have really good mobility. If you're anywhere from like 3.5 to 7.5, it's fair, but you have some areas to improve on. And if it's below 2.5, it's very poor. That means your fall risk is going up incredibly. And what we're finding here is that like it's a good indicator of your longevity, like how long you live. So I want to put that in there. I really like everybody to do that and just see how mobile they are. That's probably the best gold standard in terms of how mobile you are. Other thing is, can you do a push-up? Yes or no. Can you go all the way down, chest to the ground, and push up? Yes or no. Can you do a lunge? Can you just go and take your knee down to the ground and stand up without using any help? And can you turn your neck, all the way to the left, all the way to the right? Can you touch your neck to your chest right here? And can you look all the way up? Now, those are basic things to look at. And so one of what we want to do here is give you an idea of a basic template that you can follow with exercises. And I would always suggest starting out with body weight, but eventually you want to get to using some sort of weights. Like if nothing else, using weights and dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells are all options, but like dumbbells are probably the easiest place to start. And think about building strength, but also building a decent aerobic base. So something that's going to get you strong and also something that's going to get you breathing a little bit. And one of the easiest ways you can program for yourself is to take 2 or 3 movements and think of a 1 on, 1 off timing period, right? So do like 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest, 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest, or 1 minute of work, 1 minute of rest, whatever you want it to be. And do that for a period of, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, somewhere around there. But you want it to be something, you're picking movements and a prescription that is sustainable. In other words, you're not like for the first 5 minutes doing awesome, you're crushing it, you're moving real fast. And then like minutes 6, 7, 8, you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm burned out. I can't do it anymore. That means you're doing something too heavy or too hard or too many reps or something like that. You want to think about doing something that's sustainable for a period of time. And earlier I mentioned the different movement patterns like pushing, pulling, bending, squatting, carrying, twisting. Those are things that you want to put within that prescription. So let's say, for instance, you have a movement A and a movement B, and you want to do it for a period of 12 minutes in that 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off pattern. So you could take, doing like dumbbell push-ups or dumbbell bench press, and then mix it with like a row, right? So 30 seconds of pushing, 30 seconds of pulling, resting in between, going back and forth. And that's going to be an easy way to get your heart rate up. You could do 30 seconds of lunging, and then 30 seconds of getting on a Airdyne bike or doing something like that, or running. Yeah. Just mix it up, and it's an easy way to get your workout in a very, very short period of time. Yeah, that's how I do a lot of my workouts.
Yeah. Those are like, they call them like HIIT workouts. Like you just do it on, off, on, off. Yeah,
that's essentially what a lot of the high intensity interval training is. Like this interval training, just do period of work, period of rest, period of work, period of rest. You can do the same thing when you're running, right? You could walk for 30 seconds and run for 30 seconds. Walk for 30 seconds, run for 30 seconds. You could do it with rowing. You could do it with cycling, whatever you want. But I really like to encourage people to do something with some weights, where you're getting some things in there. Planks are awesome for this too. Like just do a plank for 30 seconds and then get up and run for 30 seconds. Do a plank for 30 seconds, get up and run for 30 seconds with a little 30 seconds in between. And you can get your heart rate up and you can build strength in a very short period of time and get a great workout in.
I like it. I challenged myself. I used to not be able to do a plank for 30 seconds without dying, like shaking, and my abs and everything were just like trembling. Now I'm up to 3 minutes. I try to do a 3-minute plank every single day.
Oh, nice.
And it's cool to see, like you said, start off somewhere and you'll see a progression. And like now that's what I'm at. So I'm at a 3-minute plank per day. So it's pretty cool because before I couldn't even do 30 seconds without dying. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, for sure. Planks are so easy. So that's another thing. I want to encourage people to get on the floor as much as possible, right? And there's a lot of people that, as we age, they say, I can't get on the floor, it hurts. And I want to just really encourage you to like not have that mindset and understand that like your ability to get down on the floor and get up is so important. That sit-rise test that I was talking about, is going to kind of help show that to you. But like, start exercising on the floor. Start doing things like a plank. Start doing things like a bird dog, where you're on your hands and knees and taking your opposite arm and opposite leg, and improving your core strength. So this is essentially what the 3-minute flow program is all about. It's taking 2 movements, like what I'm talking about here, where you do each movement for 30 seconds with a little break in between, and then just going back and forth for 3 minutes. It's like the easiest way to get started with your exercise prescription. It's awesome. And you can do it for 30 days and you'll see amazing results. And the other movement program that we have there is a sitting solution. So for people who work at a desk, or if you're someone who absolutely cannot get on the ground, then the sitting solution is a really good option for you. It has different videos with exercises, movements that show you what to do if you have like ankle pain, or if you have shoulder pain or neck pain, like a lot of great ideas that you can use. And it comes with resistance bands, shows you some things that you can do with the foam roll to, improve your thoracic mobility, like I was talking about. But it's all based around getting up and moving for a period of 2 to 4 minutes every 45 minutes. And then when you're moving, trying to do things that correct your posture, So both of those are great options. We can put links in here to help people with it. But in general, those are the things I want to talk about today with movement. Really appreciate it. Have an appreciation for your position when you're sitting, standing. Think about those principles of mobility and stability, and put those into your own exercise prescription as you do what you do, whether that's whatever it is. But make sure you're pushing, you're pulling, you're bending, you're squatting, and try some of these tests that I mentioned here, and just see if you can do them.
Great. Well, we were talking, we actually had some feedback come up that said, I started water aerobics a few weeks ago. It's so much fun. So
nice.
It's an example of something different. And water aerobics is great. It's low impact on the body. You're getting a workout out of it.
Yeah. When I was, I worked with a lot of patients in aquatic rehab, for people who their joints hurt and they can't absorb any weight of any kind. That's a great place to start. And a lot of people with back pain do well with aquatic therapy. So that's a great example of something that is perfect for that person, and to think about movement in that way, like what is good for me? Because, we may have friends that say, well, I do CrossFit, or I run marathons every weekend, but that's them. That's not you. Don't try something and get hurt right away. For you, it may be actually just going in the water and moving around a little bit to get some fluid in your joints. And then when you're strong enough, I would encourage you to eventually get back on land and do some things that strengthen your core and develop stability around all your joints. But if that's where you're starting, definitely do that. That's great.
Perfect. And then we had another one pop up that said, is it beneficial to take supplements like turmeric and krill oil on an empty stomach or with a meal?
You can definitely take it with an empty stomach. Yeah, I take the turmeric, my probiotic, krill oil, all on an empty stomach first thing in the morning with a big glass of water, some salt, and lemon. I find that I absorb it much better that way, and as opposed to like mixing it with food.
Right.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
definitely.
All right, let's dive into our questions that I collected over the week.
All right.
The first one is from Ofra. She goes, I don't need to lose any more weight, but I need to get stronger. I just joined CrossFit and love to know what is good to eat before and after working out.
So that a lot of that depends on the type of workout that you're doing. So most of the CrossFit workouts are extremely metabolic. They're things that are getting you like real huffy puffy, right? So those type of workouts, you don't want to have a lot of food in your stomach when you go into those workouts, right? Because you want the blood moving to your extremities, your arms and your legs. You don't want a lot of blood pooling in your intestines trying to break down your food. So if you're doing anything like that, I would always suggest going into the workout somewhat fasted and making sure you're giving around 2 to 3 hours of a window before you go into that workout, right? So you can eat 2 or 3 hours before and then do it, you'll probably be fine. If you're just lifting weights, like if you're just doing, back squat, bench press, bent over rows, things like that, then you can eat much closer to the workout. But if you absolutely need something to put in your stomach, otherwise, you get blood sugar problems or something like that, think about something that's easily digestible. So not a lot of protein and fat, because those take longer times to digest. Think of something like, like a spoonful of almond butter and like a quarter of a banana or something like that. That would be a good idea. After your workout, I would still suggest giving you, it's the same kind of rule. The more huffy puffy you are, the more you can't absorb food in that way. So never eat food when you're in that state, because you just won't absorb it very well, and you won't recover in that way either. So wait till your body's calm, and you'll notice that if you're just lifting and not getting too huffy puffy, that window is much shorter. And if you're doing something real metabolic and huffy puffy, it's going to be a lot longer, maybe sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that's the timing of it. Yeah. And that prescription of what you eat is also dependent on your current level of leanness and your current strength. So she mentioned that she's wanting to get stronger. So definitely encourage lots of protein and lots of carbohydrates. So think about anywhere from 0.8 grams to 1 gram of lean body mass. You can go to ketogains.com and find out, you can put in your weight and your percentage of body fat and find out what your lean body mass is right there. But you want to be eating around 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then you can also go over to chronometer.com and get an idea of how many grams of protein are in different types of foods, like eggs or steak or chicken or anything like that. But also, if you're wanting to get stronger, I would make sure that you're doing strength work and not just metabolic work. So if you really want to get stronger, then maybe cut down on a lot of the metabolic conditioning stuff, because that's not really making you stronger. I would just do things like back squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, weighted pull-ups, dips, things like that. And if you're just starting out, doing things in the 12 to 15 rep range or the 8 to 10 rep range, and going very slow on the way down. So taking a squat with a barbell and going very slow. And that'll help you get a lot of hypertrophy in your muscles, get you bigger, get you stronger, and also improve your movement patterns, right? And over time, you want to lower the rep ranges, so like 5 to 7 reps, eventually 3 to 5 reps, but start there rather than just doing like Murph and thinking you're going to get stronger, and doing something like a 30-minute workout where you're huffy puffy and not lifting any weights. You've got to eat more and you've got to lift heavier. That's as simple as it can get.
Yeah. And yeah. I'm people that I cannot eat before workout. I have to usually work out first thing in the morning, and I have to do it on an empty stomach. It does not sit well with me to eat anything before.
Yeah. And I think most people in this group, try to go in a little fasted and wait a little bit before you eat. You're not going to recover any better if you eat right after your workout. Just wait a little bit. You might recover faster, but again, it's depending on the type of workout, but just wait, And in general, if people are looking to lose weight, you want less carbs after your workout, because you haven't really tapped into your glycogen. For most people starting out, you want to lose weight and get stronger, get lean, just lift weights, eat a little on the lowest carb side, and only go to those carbs if you're really, really, doing something metabolic, like really huffy puffy, and then just wait a little bit before you eat.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question. This one is from Donnie. Can women's leptin drop too low on keto that they don't lose any weight?
Well, I guess, something that I thought about this one, but really most people improve their leptin sensitivity when they do something like the ketogenic diet. So for those that don't know, leptin is the satiety hormone. It's basically, telling your brain how much food you have and how much more nutrition you need to eat. So when you're leptin resistant, you could be holding on to all kinds of energy in your body in the form of fat, but your brain is not getting the signal, so it wants to keep eating food, right? So that's not a place you want to be. That's where we end up when we're eating lots of sugar, lots of foods without lots of good quality nutrients. But when we're moving more towards a whole food diet, specifically like a ketogenic diet, we're typically eating more protein and more fat, and those foods tend to be more satiating, so it's improving. For most people, it's improving leptin sensitivity. What I'm guessing here is that she's on keto and she's having problems losing weight. So we have to kind of troubleshoot that a little bit. And the simplest thing to do is just look at how many calories you're eating. So a lot of times people will just eat all the fat in the world, eat all the protein in the world. They're not really getting into ketosis, and that's why they're not losing weight. So I would say first look at the amount of calories that you're eating. And I mentioned those 2 applications that you can go to. So ketogains.com, that's where you can enter in some information, and it'll tell you how many proteins, how many grams of proteins, carbs, and fats you should be eating every day, and how many calories you should be eating every day, based on your body weight and your current level of leanness. And then go over to chronometer.com. Let's start with a C. And for like 2 weeks, just start logging your food. You know, if you really want to do that, if you want to go that route, just start logging your food and make sure you're within the macronutrient profile that you need to be in, and see if you're eating too many calories. My guess is you're probably eating too many calories or too many carbohydrates, or even possibly too much protein to actually put yourself in a ketogenic state. So try that for 2 weeks, get familiar with that, and then see what happens to your weight. You know, but more than likely you'll see improvements in that way. We can put the links in there if people want to check that out. But that's only something I suggest for people that want to do that, kind of weigh and measure their food and get familiar with it. With the 30-day challenge, we really just want you focusing on whole real food and not thinking about any of that stuff. But with keto, it's a little bit different.
Perfect. And then we had 2 more questions pop in. Speaking of real food, I use the Native Path collagen protein in my green smoothie each morning. The smoothie has multiple types of leafy greens, blueberries, avocados, celery, and carrots, plus protein powder. Is this enough protein to count as my breakfast?
Well, if it's just the Native Path collagen, I would say no. You know, and if you're using, I would encourage you not to use any other type of protein in there, like whey. You know, if you're on the challenge, we definitely don't want you doing that. We prefer you just using the collagen. But you probably want more protein in there, and one of the easiest ways that you can do that is put some egg yolks in there. So put like 2 to 3 egg yolks in there, and that'll get you closer to your protein intake that you ideally want to be at. But protein is going to help you boost up your metabolism. So many important nutrients in like egg yolks and things like that. But there's only there's 20 grams of protein in the collagen, but it's not a complete protein. So you want to round out your protein intake, and I would say throw in some egg yolks, and that should get you there. But try to stay away from like whey and even like plant-based proteins for the first 30 days. If you're after the first 30 days, I think the plant-based proteins are fine, but just make sure that you're getting enough egg yolks in there.
Right. And it's important on the first 30 days too, is not to just do smoothies as meals. You want to actually eat your actual meal, real food, fresh food. So that's important too, is for people on the 30-day challenge not to just eat smoothies too.
Right. We want to develop a healthy relationship with real whole food and chew your food.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. Next question. Did you mention we are supposed to be able to get off the floor from legs crossed position with no other assistance? I have a constructed left knee ACL in a foot situation where I cannot bend my toes. I have to wear hokas to be able to walk, as my toes are locked, so I don't know how to get up without my hands and my arms. Do you have any suggestions, as it's freaking me out? Thank you.
Well, so I would suggest you start to improve the health of your foot. But yes, ideally, what's good is to be able to get from a cross-legged position to standing up without using any arms or legs. And I don't say this to scare anyone. You know, wherever you are is where you are. But it's a good indicator of what you most need to work on. So and it'll show you in this example, like where you need to focus your efforts. So it sounds like what's happening here is that the foot is limiting that what's happening. So one thing you can do, I have a video on the Sitting Solution YouTube channel where it talks about how to improve the health of your feet and how to improve ankle mobility, and some things you can do like rolling your foot over a lacrosse ball to loosen up a lot of that tissue and improve the mobility within the joints of the foot. And I mentioned earlier walking barefoot, how that can be good to improving your foot health. So like walking on grass outside for like 5 to 10 minutes every day is gonna help as well. But just, try not to get too freaked out or anything like that. Just know that it's something you need to work on, and just take your time and do it. It's totally okay where you are, but keep getting on the ground and getting up. Keep getting on the ground and getting up. It's really, really important. Yeah. If nothing else, just practice getting like laying on your back, standing up. Do it 10 times.
Right.
Just practice that, and do it going to your right. Do it going to your left. Do it going to your right. Do it going to your left. Like that right there, and then try starting on your stomach.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just practice over and over and over again. And that right there is a better workout for most people than like going to the gym and getting on the machine and doing this. Right.
Yeah, it's important for people to be patient and understand you might not get it right the first time, but that's why you're going to keep working towards it. And that's, people need to understand, be patient with your body. It's a process, but you'll get there. And so like you said, it's more important sometimes than just going to the gym and just pumping a bunch of weights or doing squats, is to try these simple movements to gain your balance, your movement back, are really crucial.
Yeah. And that's another thing I want to encourage people to think about, is to do movements that use multiple joints and multiple muscles rather than muscles in isolation, right? So like in the 70s and 80s, when the bodybuilding era came in, a lot of these gyms started popping up. They created machines where you would work one muscle at a time. So like, you know, we have a gym here in our neighborhood, and I go there all the time, and I see all these people on machines, and they're like, you know, doing the bicep curls, or they're doing the quad extensions, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I'm going to point to all the muscles that are working right now, and it's like one muscle, you know. But the body doesn't work that way. Like we never move with one muscle at a time, right? So we're not interacting this brain, right? So we're forgetting how to move.
Yeah.
You know, you want to move as many joints as you can. So like, instead of doing, you know, like a tricep extension, that's got nothing on a like a push-up, where you're even if you're starting at the top of the push-up and lowering yourself down, because your shoulders, your elbows, your core is having to work, your glutes are having to work. You're asking more muscles to work in one time, as opposed to like just this, right? So always think about using as many joints, as many muscles as possible when you're working out.
The beauty of the plank, it's full body. I love it.
It's full body, yeah, and crawling.
Yes.
That's like, if people would like fall in love with crawling, like really getting on your hands and knees and taking your opposite arm and leg and moving it forward at the same time. Just practice crawling. It's so good. I mean, everybody can benefit from crawling. Crawl for 30 seconds and then run for 30 seconds. Crawl for 30 seconds, run. You get your workout done there.
Perfect. I like it. Next, we actually had another one pop up there. I love all the questions today on Facebook. Do you recommend keto supplements?
Not to start out, no, I don't. So many reasons. Like, a lot of these exogenous ketones, like, these are not for people who are in this group, and these are like not something that I suggest. Like, don't put your supplements, like, really keep it simple. Just collagen, krill, probiotics. You know, the native nutrients are great. But exogenous ketones are not something that I suggest people use. You can get yourself in a low carb ketogenic state first and foremost by just nutrients, carbohydrates from vegetables, eating good quality meats, and getting good quality fats. Like, do not waste your money and your time on exogenous ketones. I'm not a big fan of them. Yeah. Whole real food every time.
I like it. All right. The last question is from Norma. She put, what can I do with my left hip versus tendons? The pain is not going away, and I have 4 months now of it. Thank you.
Yeah, so she's got 4 months of left hip bursitis. So, you know, for those who don't know, the bursa sac is sort of a cushion in between your hip and your hip capsule there, right? And it's getting inflamed. And it's one of the reasons it's getting inflamed, because the hip is immobile. It's tight, right? That's why most people are getting hip bursitis. So for most of us, we're sitting in that flex position all the time, where our hip is flexed, right? And that's causing all kinds of restrictions in our hip capsule. So some of the things you want to start doing are stretching your hip flexors, right? Where that's where you get on one knee, you squeeze your glutes and translate forward. You want to strengthen your glutes. You want to improve internal and external rotation in the hip, and you want to start extending the hip. So a really cool thing is, I did a hip workshop earlier this year on Facebook Live, and I will post it in this group. And that's something you can start doing every day. It's a nice little hip routine that you can do that should give you some relief right away. But definitely start doing that and be consistent with it. But the idea is stretch the hip flexors, strengthen the glutes, internally, externally rotate the hip, and start extending the hip. And that should give you some relief.
Wonderful. That's all of our questions for today.
All right.
Very amazing, always informational, and the power of learning to eat real food and keep moving.
Yes, so simple. Yeah, do all those things before you start investing in some far out supplement like that. Yeah, for sure.
And we'll post all the links that we discussed today, and I hope everybody has a great week.
Okay, you guys, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.